Welcome viewers to Season 2 of the Nation Pod Talk. This is the space where voices from all walks of life come together, from sports and entertainment to business and beyond. Today on the Nation Pod Talk, we are joined by a very special guest all the way from Australia, renowned cricket commentator and journalist Adam Collins.
Maxwell, who goes long and high over mid-wicket. That will go all the way for 6. That's gone 15 rows back, and it might have indeed ricocheted out of the ground altogether.
From calling the action on BBC Test Match Special to shaping conversations on the Final Word podcast, Adam Collins has become a defining voice in modern cricket media. He's also shared the MIC with legendary commentators like Harsha Bhogle on Cricbuzz Chatter, bringing sharp analysis and a fresh perspective to the game. Hosting this episode is our host Priyangsha Kumar.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the SEN Nation Pod Talk. Today we are joined by a special guest from Australia, award-winning cricket journalist and broadcaster Adam Collins. From BBC Test Match Special to hosting Final Word podcast, Adam's voice is one of the most trusted in the game. Let's dive into the world of cricket with the man who has seen it all, from the press box to the pitch. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Adam Collins. Sir, how are you feeling today?
Hello, thank you. Yes, I'm at the Oval in London, where I've just been commentating on Surrey's victory over Yorkshire in the county championship, which is one of the things that I do during the UK summer, having the privilege of covering the county championship. So I'm from Australia. Obviously, my accent will make that much clear. But beyond that, I live here in the UK and follow the cricket around the world, which is always a privilege.
Yeah. Adam, take us back to the beginning. What sparked your love for cricket and journalism?
Well, cricket itself has been part of my life from the moment, it feels like it was in the womb almost, as far as always wanting to play the game, always wanting to have a bat or a ball in my hand. I'm 40 and still play lots of cricket, and hopefully will continue to play cricket forever. I was playing yesterday. And then as you get older in Australia, it's just part of the culture in a way that's very similar to India, I suppose, where you're outside playing routinely or you're inside watching it on the television. I'm a child of the 1990s, before cable television, before the internet, before other distractions and algorithms and phones and all of that type of thing. So I had the great privilege in hindsight of growing up before all of that. So that meant that I was able to, plug in and watch international cricket on what was then Channel 9 day in, day out. And it did foster a love of not only the playing of the game, but the narration of the game, the description of the game, the history of the game, which has lived with me throughout my life.
Oh, that's something really great to hear. But you have worn many hats: journalist, commentator, author. Which role do you feel most at home in?
That's a great question. I think all of them inform each other. I'm of the view that the best people on commentary who do my role, which is the lead. So on radio, that's more ball by ball, describing what's happening. On television, you're doing that as well, but a bit more light touch, because the pictures are, in theory at least, meant to do the talking. I know in modern television, it's a bit more chat heavy, but broadly speaking, performing that role, being able to ask good questions of the person sitting next to you, who is typically a former player, a former international cricketer, and that is definitely supported, I think, by having a journalistic background. So I like to believe that having worked in that capacity as a writer has helped my broadcasting and my hosting and that type of thing. And then when it comes to writing, authoring, I've written a couple of books. One was a political book a long time ago, and the other was Glenn Maxwell's book that we collaborated on together last year, and that was a privilege. Again, a lot of what I do, I feel that way about, to do that with him, to be trusted with his story and to tell it in that way. I don't think that hurts either, having had the discipline of writing a book, which is a very difficult thing to do, and now having to maintain a certain discipline with commentary and the preparatory work that I feel I must do before I step behind a microphone when doing a test match or a World Cup game or a county game or whatever it is. I pride myself on my preparation, and that's definitely related to the craft of writing a book or writing something that's longish in its nature, that you can't start to do those things without committing to the preparation as well. So there are threads that tie together in all different parts of what I get to do.
Okay, as you were describing your love towards cricket, what was your first big break in cricket media? How did it came about?
Yeah, so I had an unusual backstory into it. I worked in politics in Australia working for the Prime Minister and then subsequently the Deputy Prime Minister and Treasurer. And that ended in 2013 when the party I was working for and the government I was working for lost office, and I needed to work out what I was going to do with my professional life at that point. And cricket was a natural thing to consider due to the passion and interest that I had in the game, and due to, I suppose, the professional skills I'd acquired when working in professional politics when on the communication side of the piece. So that meant that I had an interest in seeing whether it could work as a cricket writer initially, and quite quickly that morphed into broadcasting as well. Talking of breaks, I was over here writing about the 2015 Ashes. Indeed, in this very press box where I am right now at the Oval, I have great memories of writing on that 2015 Ashes. And in that same tour that Australia were on, I was able to end up doing some commentary work with the BBC, and commentary work led to other commentary work, and I was able to do more and more in that space over time, which has meant that I've been lucky to get any number of opportunities around the world over the decade that's followed. So I think if I was to sum it up though, I put myself in the position in 2015 to travel to the other side of the world. Before I was living in the UK, I went to the Caribbean first and found myself commentating on those test matches that Australia played in on radio for the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation. And that cascaded into working here on the BBC. And now it's something that I've been able to make more routine, working for certain stations and certain broadcasts around the world each year. And that's something that I found a nice comfortable rhythm with.
Feel once you initiate a work, you get more connection, you start getting more work that you used to like. And I guess that's the same story you have been through. Yeah,
that's right. You are able to perform, I guess, because it is performance at some level. You're describing the cricket, it's not about you, but there is an element of performance to it. And if that is seen and acknowledged and respected, it tends to open doors elsewhere. Or at least it gives you the chance to open doors elsewhere. So, yeah, that's how I've always seen it, that when I'm working somewhere, I, of course, want to do as good a job as I can do at that exact moment, in that stint, in that day, in that match. But the bigger picture is that if I can do well, and it comes across well, and it can be disciplined in the ways that the best commentary is as well, that it might lead to other opportunities in areas that I hadn't even considered before. So, that's definitely part of my story, that I've been able to move from one thing to the next, and that's often traversed radio and television. Love doing TV. I do more radio than TV, but whenever an opportunity comes up to work on TV, as it did in the Sri Lanka-Australia test matches recently in Gaul, I did radio and TV at the same time for those, and that was a wonderful experience. It was very full on, jumping from commentary box to commentary box without a break all day, but I absolutely loved it and relish that type of challenge when having to change the type of style of commentary from one over when you're on radio, where it's very descriptive and you're describing everything from the top of the bowler's run up through to the point where the ball's gone, where the ball goes. Whereas on TV, it doesn't require commenting on any of that. You add to the pictures, and it's not always easy to shift gears, but over time, I've gotten used to making those adjustments on the fly.
Oh, okay. What has been the most memorable match you have covered from the commentary box?
Gee, I'm lucky to have done a lot of high-profile Test cricket, and I love Test cricket. It's the form of the game that brings me the most satisfaction to watch or to commentate on. The idea of the slow build, and I've been really fortunate to have done that all around the world. So I've got a lot of different experiences on that front. We're watching, well, not just the Australian team, but oftentimes the Australian team away from home and at home. So that's thrilling and exhilarating. And, there are standout moments like when Scott Boland picked up his 6 wickets on Test debut, which was a remarkable thing to be commentating on, through to working in India when Australia bowled out India for not many on day one at Indore, and then went on to have a stunning a win inside 7 sessions. And the way they were able to bowl out India the second time, that was hair-raising. I was very lucky to commentate on a number of big moments in Virat Kohli's Test career, his drought-breaking century at Ahmedabad in 2023, and the 100 he made in Perth in November last year. I was on commentary for that. So those big moments in Test cricket are all there. Close finishes like Edgbaston in 2023, that Ashes match that went until about 7:15 on the final night, which was in its own way totally mesmerising in a close result. But the standout, it's hard to go past the 2019 Men's World Cup final at Lords, the tied match, and then ultimately the tied Super Over. And being able to do that, and hopefully do it justice on radio to those who are listening at the time. That's that's a once in a generation moment, if not more, for a game with that much riding on it to play out in that way. And of course, you enjoy all the back and forth afterwards as well, with fans from India who were very upset that England had won the World Cup in that way, even though India didn't make the final because they were beating New Zealand.
That was a topic of debate all over the world, that England won through something which was not conventional, I guess. I also feel that same thing, but it has been done and we have to move on. Were you there for the Goa Test match that India defeated Australia in Australia after 28 years? Yeah,
amazing. I was there at the Gabba. I was commentating on the final day. Where the way that Rishabh Pant and Washington Sundar, but not just those men, it was the way Siraj bowled in the third innings of that match. He was playing his third Test match. I'd followed his story closely, and leading that attack in the absence of so many others.
Lost his father.
Getting his opportunity. He'd lost his father. That's right. Yep, he had all of the storylines that ran alongside it, and his remarkable backstory with his dad having been a rickshaw driver and so on, and passing away around the same time that he was getting his chance to play for India. But lesser lights like Shardul Thakur and Natarajan and Saini and others who played in that week, Washington Sundar, the fact that they were able to pull the whole thing together with such an inexperienced attack to find a way to win on that final day. Cheteshwar Pujara, who's a favourite of mine, I've had the joy of interviewing him on my podcast, the gutsy way he batted at Sydney and at Brisbane, the exhilarating performance of Rishabh Pant, the way that Shubham Gill announced himself to the world on that final morning in long-form cricket. There were so many competing storylines, and then at the time I was working for Cricbuzz as well and doing end-of-play raps with Harsha Bhogle, who's a close friend of mine and a close colleague of mine. He's been a mentor of mine as well as a commentator, and he and I think we did about an hour. It was meant to be a 20-minute segment, and we just went on and on and on, and a lot of people still talk to me about that episode from Cricbuzz, and there's a lot of joy that Indian fans take from a thrilling win in that Border Gavaskar Trophy series from absolutely nowhere.
I feel Border Gavaskar Trophy 2000, that series especially is my favorite series, not because India won it, but that story that holds that series. Virat Kohli came back, India didn't have their major players. They were playing with 7-8 players that were playing their first series away from home. And even after that, they defeated Australia in Australia after all those chaos, and also beating Australia at Goa. That was a tremendous story. But as you mentioned that you have worked with Harsha Bhogle, tell us your experience working with Harsha Bhogle, the Cricbuzz Chatter.
Yeah, look, I've worked a lot with Harsha. He's been a regular co-commentator of mine on radio, which is always a thrill. He sits in the other chair on radio these days when he works with me. He'll be the colour commentator or the summariser, as is the jargon on radio, and the fun of being able to take our on-camera relationship and put it on radio. It's been so much fun doing that with him at different points up here, just above me here actually, at the World Test Championship Final in 2023. Harsha and Ravi were our two Indian summarisers, and Shastri is again terrific on radio. Great value having them outside of the traditional medium. We're so conditioned to watching Harsha and watching Ravi on telly. Having them on radio is so much fun as well. And yeah, from the moment that Harsha and I started working together in 2018, it's been a joy to become a friend and mentor, him to me, and that is not the other way around. And having been able to tell his story in so many different ways. We've done a number of podcasts together on my Final Word channel, which has been great. We did a really long interview with him on the Final Word in 2018. I can strongly recommend that to your viewers and your watchers here today if you want to learn more about Harsha Bhogle and about the way he was treated by Indian authorities after the 2016 World Cup, T20 World Cup, when he was sacked summarily on the basis that he was too enthusiastic about Bangladesh playing well, which was an absolute disgrace. And the way that Harsha recovered from that chastening experience and ended up returning to television in India and around the world, and combining that with a massive presence on Cricbuzz, which he's taken to like a duck to water. He's the ultimate freelancer, Harsha. He's been doing this since the 1980s, the early 1980s, when he first started commentating on cricket as a teenager, and someone I have so much respect for and adoration for the work that he's done. So I'm looking forward to seeing him in no more than a few weeks from now when he comes out here for the next instalment of England versus India, the test matches that will play out through July and early August in England.
Harsha Bhogle is personally my favorite commentator as well, not because he don't come from a cricketing world like Ravi Shastri or something. He came as a cricket analyst and became the voice of cricket, I feel. We in India compare him with Peter Drury of football, and that's the aura he holds in Indian cricket, Indian commentary panel, I feel. And he has been the voice of cricket, and I admire him a lot. I am also doing journalism and mass communication. I also admire to be a sport journalist, and he is my favorite, no doubt. And he has been inspiration for all in India. And moving forward,
and I totally, and as he says himself, that couldn't happen now because, look, we're all cricketers, right? Like I said at the start, my passion for the game started by playing it. Harsha played it as well. Just because you haven't gone on to play it professionally doesn't discount you from being a cricketer and understanding the game intimately, as Harsha does, as I do, frankly. I mean, I know the game and the lived experience of the game back to front as well. Not playing professionally doesn't change that. But Harsha's primary skill, of course, as a broadcaster is as a storyteller, of being able to narrate big moments and put them into context and to provide historical reference points along the way. He's an encyclopedia on the history of the game in ways that you don't always see with former players who are commentating, who a lot of the time are there to provide expert knowledge on exactly what's happening in the 22 yards at that given moment, whereas Harsha can paint with a wider canvas, and I suppose commentators like me, I try and do that as well.
yeah, he has done a lot, and I also feel that sport journalism has that an issue that not more cricket analysts or cricket journalists are coming into the panel. That is a very big panel like Harsha Bhogle sitting there, but we hope that it's get better and better with each passing day. But moving forward, you have co-authored The Showman with Glenn Maxwell. What was that process like? Any behind the scenes story from writing that book that didn't make the final cut or something?
Oh, not really. I think everything that Glenn told me over multiple Zoom calls over many hours was in the book. He's an open book as a personality. He's a wonderful person, Glenn. He's a friend, Maxie. You know, I think anyone that knows him is drawn to him. He's magnetic as a character, and we were able to not only tell that story of his personality, but also more challenging issues as well around mental health and anxiety, which he suffered from, depression too, and I think that he was happy to be vulnerable, happy to continue to be the type of person who you can get to know personally. Well, he was happy to be that publicly in the pages of that book, and being fiercely honest about anything, and I think that's part of his charm. You don't get two versions of Glenn Maxwell, a version for public consumption and a version for the private him. He's basically the same guy regardless. Well, not basically, no need for caveats. He is the same guy, and he obviously wears his heart on his sleeve, as anyone who's watched him play can identify with. So yeah, it was a privilege to be asked to do that with him. We'd spoken about doing a book together for a number of years. We talked about making a documentary at one point and any number of other things that he was interested in creatively. So yeah, Glenn's been an enormous force in global cricket for a really long time, and will continue to be an exceptional player, no doubt. But when the time comes for him stopping as a player, he'll have lots of options as well when it comes to being a commentator on the game too, because I feel like he's the kind of guy who could bring viewers and listeners into his orbit and would find a way of making it an even more accessible game for people at home. So yeah, love doing it, heaps of fun, I can't overstate what a great human being he is.
Okay. You have seen the game evolve. What excites you or concern you most about the modern cricket?
Yeah, well, look, modern cricket's got a lot of challenges. The way in which franchise cricket has now eaten up so much of the schedule, that's almost the thin edge of the wedge, though. The schedule's a problem, it's an increasing challenge and a problem, but the concentration of power and the politicisation of that power from a certain part of the administrative side of the game is a big challenge for the game. And this has been well documented by many, but it's not a healthy state of affairs when you can go from running the BCCI one day to running the ICC the next, and the way in which that sequenced was an emblem of the way the modern power imbalance in cricket is manifested at the moment, the way it manifests itself rather. And there are any number of different threads that flow from that. This isn't me saying that Jay Shah's a bad person, I hasten to add, or that India isn't great for cricket. Of course it is. Or that the money or the wealth that's brought through by domestic T20 cricket isn't also good for the game. Of course that is too. But there's something to be said for balance. There's something to be said for respect and appreciating what's come before where we are right now, and for trying to find a way for all different types of cricket to coexist, and to make sure that power isn't concentrated in the hands of too few, because that doesn't lead to good governance traditionally, historically, and that becomes a challenge for the game as we move into the future. And that would be the same if it were in the hands of a few who were based in Australia and England as well. This is not about it being in India. It's about the fact that it's concentrated and it's so heavily politicized as well, which anyone who tries to ignore that fact is kidding themselves or kidding who they're talking to, because it is layered with politics. You need look no further than the messaging around the resumption of the IPL a couple of weeks ago. It's all intertwined, and that is going to be something that administrators need to be brave about around the world over time, and we need to be more honest about the conversations and less deferential, and need to be more strident when feeling the need to criticise in the interest of the game globally and in the interest of the game in all its forms, not just in the interest of those making as much money as they humanly can out of one particular form of the game, domestic T20.
Yeah, I do agree with that, and a concern that I feel in the modern day cricket is the difference in the bowling comparison. I feel cricket has becoming a game of just batters. If you have good batters in the team, you won that game, high scoring matches. Do you agree with that?
Oh, it's not for me really. I don't watch the IPL, so I can't really comment on it. I haven't watched all of it for years. It's not really and that's not because I don't respect it. It's obviously an amazing tournament, but I don't really have it's the one. I don't watch much of the Big Bash and don't watch much of the 100 either. It's just sometimes there's just too much going on. As a journalist, you can't do everything. And at this time of year, I'm following the county championship over here, and I'm playing 2 games a week of cricket myself. I've got a young family. We're about to come up upon another very busy English summer. I've just come out of an extremely busy Australian summer with the Border Gavaskar test matches in Sri Lanka. So I know there has been a hyperinflation in scoring, but I'm not qualified to talk about the balance between bat and ball beyond looking at scorecards.
Yeah. Moving forward, we would like to ask 2 rapid fire round questions with you, personal or fun ones. Favorite ground to commentate on?
Oh, that's a great question to start. The easy answer would be to say Newlands, because of Table Mountain sitting right there in Cape Town. Love doing Adelaide each year. I think an underrated ground is Port Elizabeth. I loved being in Port Elizabeth. Your commentary box there is right on top of the sight screen. So you look out the window and you're basically talking to the fielder at fine leg. He's like 15 metres away from you. So the intimacy of Port Elizabeth. But there are grounds all around the world. I've got a massive soft spot for indoor, where we were last year or the year before last for a Border Gavaskar test. I thought that was a sensational test venue with the stands on top of each other. The pitch wasn't so crash hot, but the ground itself was pretty cool. Dharamshala in India is special in its own way. I love the Chinnaswamy. I've given you about 10 answers now, haven't I? But you get the impression. And being out here at the Oval, week in, week out, being at Lords a lot as well, and grounds in England which do it in its own unique way with so much demand for tickets, you always get full houses calling Test cricket here. There's never a spare seat doing any Test match in England, so there's a charm to that as well. So I found a way of not answering your question there.
Yeah. Moving forward, a cricketer past or present you would love to have a long dinner conversation with?
A cricketer past and present I would love to have a long dinner. Conversation with. That is such a great question. That is such a such a varied question, such a tough question to properly summon the concentration for. You know what? I might keep it simple, owing to the broadcasting piece. I rock up not long after Richie Benaud finishes in Australia not only on television. He passed away in early 2015. So just for the idea of someone having a life in cricket that extended to, I think it was 800 test matches that he was involved in as a player or as a commentator. A lot of people knew Richie really, really well and speak so highly of him in the cricket media industry. I think he'd be one, but I mean, I could name 500 who I would have a nourishing conversation with, owing to the fact that so much of my life is looking at the history of the game. For one of the episodes we make on the Final Word Cricket podcast each week is called Storytime. And that's where we go back and tell the stories of the history of the game. And there are so many remarkable characters that you happen upon when researching those episodes. It'd be a privilege to spend time with any number of them.
If I would ask your favorite all-time cricketer, will the answer remain the same, or is there some other pick?
No, it's not as simple as that for me. All-time favourite player. Well, why don't we restrict it to people who I grew up watching? That might be a better way of framing this question. So, I grew up a childhood hero with Dean Jones. I'm from Victoria. So watching Dino as a young boy was a hugely thrilling thing as the Victorian who was playing for Australia and doing it so well. And in my teenage years, that became Mark Waugh. Well, not just teenage years, before that too, but through my youth. Mark Waugh made his Test debut in my first year of school, and he finished up as an Australian cricketer in my last year of school. So he perfectly spans my youth, and I was heavily invested in Mark Waugh's career as well. So a couple of players from my youth. In both instances, I knew Dino a little bit, didn't know him that well, but had multiple conversations with him when I first joined the cricket media, and it was such a massive loss when he passed away. That was a really dreadful time. And Mark Waugh, who I from time to time see around the media centre, and always enjoy saying good day to him, and he knows that he was my childhood hero, which is a nice thing to sort of have. Not to say it's a bond of any sorts, but he knows how I felt about him as a player. So yeah, that's not for nothing.
Yeah, at last, what's one cricketing myth or media narrative you would like to bust today?
Media myth or media narrative. I'll give you a quirky one. So Calcutta 2001, Lakshman and Dravid win the impossible test at Calcutta at Eden Gardens with Lakshman's extraordinary 280 and batting as he did for so long with KL Rahul. 281 or 280. It's remarkable that I can't say with complete accuracy whether it was one or the other. Whatever it was, there's an opinion you occasionally hear that Australia never enforced the follow-on after that, for they were so chastened by what happened in Calcutta. Well, what actually happened was Steve Waugh was captain of Australia 8 more times when they were able to enforce the follow-on after Calcutta 01, and on all 8 occasions he enforced it. And on all 8 occasions, Australia won. So it is a myth. It's a total myth that Australia stopped enforcing the follow-on, or Steve Waugh stopped enforcing the follow-on because of Calcutta. That's not the case. It's true they don't enforce it too often these days, but that's more to do with medical science and them not wanting to have their bowlers fronting up twice in a row. But taken as a whole, that is one of the great myths of cricket, that Australia stopped enforcing it after the 2001 Eden Gardens Test.
Okay, that was something interesting to hear. I also was not aware about that fact. But moving forward, it's a prediction time, and you will be there for the World Test Championship final, I think. What's your pick for the final, Australia or South Africa? Any particular reason?
Yeah, I think Australia are a stronger team on paper, but I am acutely aware of how strong South Africa's bowlers are. The most recent time they played a test match at Lords in 2022, they routed England. They knocked them over twice for under 200. So if someone like Issa Rabada, who was player of the match in that test match, can get hot, he is capable of world-changing cricketing events. So I would love to see South Africa rock up and stand up to be counted. I guess my one prediction is I don't expect it'll be a test match that'll reach the 5th day. I feel like with the 2 bowling groups that'll be summoned together, making runs at that time of year at Lords with live grass on the pitch on an ICC curated surface, I think the most likely scenario is that it's a type of test match where it's nip and tuck, low scoring, and a bit of a survival of the fittest for the batting groups.
South Africa never won any World Championship. It will be the first for them?
Yeah, it would be, but I don't think that means an awful lot. I think that's something that is a media narrative. I don't think the reason why South Africa lost the World Cup final last year in the Caribbean was to do with choking. I think they lost because Jasprit Bumrah is the best bowler I've ever seen. So, I think there requires, it's incumbent upon us to provide perspective.
They felt that pressure from the Hardik Pandya's over, Jasprit Bumrah over. Marco Jansen's wicket was something like that went into the pressure of just facing Jasprit Bumrah. That clean bowl between the pad and bat. But I hope South Africa win this tournament, and it was pleasant talking to you. Got to know more about cricket, more insights about cricket, and it was a pleasure having you on this conversation. Thanks a lot for your time.
No worries, Priyanshu. Good luck with the project and best of luck with your career.
Thanks a lot. For more such videos, keep watching the SEN Nation podcast.